Thank you guys very much. I appreciate this. We have so many things to talk about today. You know, it's interesting that the shareholder proposal or the compensation, let's call it the performance award for Elon actually just dropped on Friday. It feels like a decade ago. And then so this week I've started to carefully track what are the institutional analysts, the big whale investors, how are they reacting to this? So far, it seems to be fairly positive. You know, I've gotten kind of take a look at Morgan Stanley, Cantor Fitzgerald, of course, Dan Ives, Baird, a number of others as well. Alexandra, do you have like a comment on that? Like, what are you hearing right now in terms of this package, how's it going to be received by, investors?
So institutional investors, I was actually quite surprised in the proxy how detailed they explained to us what happened in 2024 to get the institutions on board. I mean, you obviously all remember how important both those votes were in 2024, and they explain, how many institutions they saw, how many conferences they attended, and all that. So they're making a heck of an impact in the institutional world, and are playing that game quite well, more professionally and more set up than I thought. It's also very clear that investor relations within Tesla is reporting directly to the board. They made that clear in a couple of sentences, not only once. So I do believe they have created a lot of goodwill. When you read the proxy, and I have to admit, I'm now at page 40 and something. I mean, I really try to read it word by word, nothing, grokked or whatever, because there's really so much detail in it that I don't want to miss. But it's very clear that they have a good chunk of institutions on their side. And I'm very stuck, and it's been now for 2 days in my head, and I haven't gotten around it yet, is that proposal number 6, where they are neutral. They don't say what they want, but it is a management proposal. So it is a proposal by Tesla without saying whether they're for or against it. They're saying none. And so obviously I want to help everybody to figure out what we should do. And I haven't figured it out yet. And why is it so complicated? So for the last, let me check it out, since 2014, so for the last 11 years, there have been shareholder proposals from 2 people. One is called Mr. Shevardin and one is called Mr. McRitchie. And they're active not only with Tesla, they're active with nearly all the mega caps, and they're sort of trying to play the white knights for minority shareholder votes, whatever. It's a whole story, and I don't want to do it here because I'm going to bore you with it. But they come up always with the shareholder proposals to get rid of the supermajority and whatever. And so over the years, Tesla has always been against this. And proposal 13 is in there. It's another one of the 2 of them going for shareholder rights. And now instead of going again against it, and they are going against proposal 13, they put in proposal 6. And I know I have to reply to a response with institutional investors. I'm getting there, Herbert. I'm sorry I'm taking so long. But so they actually go in that sense for once. Well, not for once, it's actually the 3rd time, where they say they want to eliminate the supermajority voting provisions. Now, what is this all about? This is about that you need 66.6% of the whole shareholder base, not only of those who vote, to get through certain decisions. And that's obviously nearly impossible. Last year, we had the highest participation, yet we were still only at 63%. So not in participation, but in results. So the fact that Tesla actually put it up there is the consequence of a couple of things. One, I think they want to end with these 2 people, McRitchie and Shevardin, to constantly bring up this same proxy access and supermajority voting issues up. And the second, much more important, is they actually did in the Texas bylaws, because we have new bylaws since May, they already got rid of a lot of supermajority issues. What are supermajority issues? It's the fact that, shareholders could propose something, but then it needs 66.6% of favorable votes. So they want to get rid of and want to make that a simple majority. And that was a request from institutional investors. So the fact that the management of Tesla now brings this up for a vote, despite not saying for or against, but shows the goodwill they're giving institutional investors, and the fact that they're bringing forward something that was asked for by big investors, and now the shareholder base will have to vote for it, for or against. And again, I'm not through with my decision making yet, but it looks like a really insignificant proposal. But in terms of investor relations with institutions, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. So sorry for a long answer to.
No, that's important. Yeah, so that's proposal 6. So soon what we need from you probably is give us a list of all the proposals, and then, right? Because this is a preliminary proxy, right? But is it pretty
That is
well
correct. It is now with the SEC for 10 days, and then around the 15th, and I hope on the 15th in the morning, it may be completely unchanged, or it may have changes in it, because the SEC has now this span to give their opinion on it. And if they feel that anything is not how it should be, they will change it. And then we will have the definitive proxy. And that's, what we're waiting for. This at the moment is the preliminary that had been sent to the SEC for comment.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, and then your comment about institutional investors, what have you been hearing? You said earlier that you think that they're mostly for this. How do you know that?
Yes. So, we did last year a thorough analysis, because last year's calendar allowed that, because when you have proxies like most companies have in the beginning of the year, then the way the institutions vote is included in their publication end of August. So last year, since we had the vote in June, we knew end of August by their SEC filings how each institution voted. And of course, the two major questions were the reconsideration of Elon's 2018 package and moving to Texas. And so given the high support of many institutions, and obviously that allowed us to look at how did they vote in 2018, how did they re-vote in 2024. That gives me a high level of confidence that they will re-vote positively to the 2025 proposal, and to the other proposal, which I think is number 3, of stocking up the 2019 employee incentive, where they want another 200 million to stock up for the 2018 Plan B for Elon, and another 60 million shares for employees for the coming years to incentivize employees. So I think all this is in the interest of institutions, and I'm quite confident on that. And I think the bone they threw to the institutions was that proposal number 6.
Gotcha. Okay. And then so far, correct me if I'm wrong, I've not yet heard, knock on wood. I mean, obviously there's Tesla shorts, there's Tesla bears, no doubt that, but I've not heard anybody step up and say, this is a really bad, performance package.
I agree. I think there are a couple of quite valid criticisms. For example, I sort of agree that adjusted EBITDA is not as powerful a measure than non-adjusted EBITDA, because when you adjust, you can adjust for a couple of things that, it's quite discretionary, let's put it that way. So there are a couple of things where the institutions or more professional people may think it could have been harsher. Or obviously we heard people going, what, 6.5 trillion? He should bring us to 20 trillion. But,
8.5 trillion.
8.5, sorry.
Where did you come up with
that? There is a couple of people, being loud about it, but certainly not the institutions. Now, the one thing you all have to keep in mind, all of us can vote from September 15th to November 5th. The institutions will vote on November 5th. Why? Because they can't take the fiduciary risk of voting early and then having an opinion on stuff without knowing everything that happens up to November 5th. So they are all voting in the last hour. And so we will not hear much from them. But who will we hear about? We will hear from those proxy advisory firms. And that's too early because we don't have the definitive proxy yet. When that is out next Monday, or when it's confirmed that the SEC didn't change anything, we will hear from those 3 proxy advisory firms, and they will all be negative and puke on it. Just the way they're set up. But you will have then a wave of negative articles because they're always picked up by Reuters and by everybody else because they just love it. This gives good headlines. So the period where you hear institutions / proxy advisors scream is coming up next week and then for a week or two, because that's their job. They want the smaller institutions to vote with them, pay them fees for their advice, and so that's how they make money. So this is not about really deep down disagreeing. This is their business model.
Gotcha. So we might start hearing more. So one last question for you is like, is it true? Do you guys feel this is true that in the last few days, since the performance award was dropped, Elon has been much more active talking about Tesla, XAI, and others? But when does he have to basically stop? When there's a quiet period for him?
So he doesn't have to stop, but anything he does that could have an influence on the proxy vote has to be published on the SEC. To the SEC. So we will see a lot of 144 filings that are, additional information to the proxy, or 14A filings, just because he is talking up about matters that could influence the proxy, and so everybody has to be informed. Just for the record, how does this work? When Tesla does this SEC filing, all institutions have the automatic feed that whatever is relevant to their portfolios, in this case Tesla, and is filed with the SEC, they get automatic notifications. So that's a way to ensure that everybody heard about it. Obviously, they are on X and they've heard about it half a day earlier, but it's just a way of being complete. So he can still talk about it, but it's much more scrutinized, and he will probably be a little bit more careful.
Yeah.
On the other hand, one thing I want to make sure is the set price for his future option exercises for the 2025 plan is set. It's 334.09. And so when people go, no, that's going to be set later on. No, it's set now. That is a price. So it's not whatever he does now, it doesn't have any influence anymore on his entry price of those options in a couple of years.
Yeah, good. So you and Omar and Jeff, you guys better be very careful not to ask more questions to Elon. Get him to answer questions for
Jeff,
you.
now it's our mistake again. And Omar's mistake. There you go.
Well, you and Omar, you guys get good info that comes out. Then, of course, we're going to get an email, the Form 140, whatever.
Hey, what about that cryptic? I think I know the answer because I guess it's from the book. But when he says "You'll thank me later," what's that in reference to?
That's the Culture series. It's there. It's going to be one of the Star Wars, SpaceX landing pads, right, guys?
Wrong. It's going to be like you're buying shares now because you'll thank me later, or it's because I'm buying a media company or 5 of them or 10 of them, and you're going to thank me later. What do you guys think?
I mean, I can tell you one thing. I'll thank him later in any case, because I do believe that we're probably going to be very rich in this whole story, so we can thank him later.
Yeah, Omar and Jeff, what do you guys think? What he meant by that?
I think your theory of the drone ship makes sense. It kind of sounds like that.
And they're all capitalized. So come on, Xander, they were all capitalized. The words were capitalized, and that's how that works for drone ship labels. So another question for you guys is, they had set for him an $8.5 trillion kind of, if he hit the 12 tranches. But many of us think that is where did that number come from? Because if it's 400 million EBITDA, then you're not going to get a PE of 20 at that time. Although they said that is these 3 companies, I can't remember who they chose, Apple, Amazon, whatever. These 3 companies is around PE 20, so that's what they use. But really, it's going to be more, right? Are you guys more in that it's not going to be 8.5 if you hit the 400, or do you? Doesn't matter. I guess it doesn't really matter at this point. But 8.5 to 20 trillion is a huge difference.
I mean, I think 20 is a pretty standard multiple. If you have high growth, then certainly maybe you could be trading at a higher multiple than that. But I think that's pretty standard. Take 400 billion, multiply it by 20. That might correspond to an $8 trillion market cap. So depending on what the growth looks like, we'll see what multiple it trades at, but I think it makes sense for the comp plan to structure the top tranche at 400 billion in adjusted EBITDA and an $8 trillion market cap.
Okay, I was going to ask you guys this question too. I asked it to Joe this morning. You know, this performance pay package just dropped, and people said that there was this what do you call that? It's overhang with the stock because you didn't know if Elon was going to leave. You didn't know what his if he was going to be motivated to be focused. You know, but now that you have this, but the stock didn't exactly jump or anything like that. And Joe's answer was, well, you have to wait until it actually gets voted in and it's actually formalized. Well, why do you think we haven't seen kind of like these supposed overhangs that are now pretty well resolved if this pay package is approved?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Why aren't we seeing an overhang, or why do we have one?
Okay, I guess assumption one is there is an overhang because everybody thought that Elon's not focused and he may not stay with the company and he may not get his compensation package, especially 2018. But those three things have actually been it's resolved because of the program plan that you can actually see now. So those three overhangs should be removed, and yet we haven't seen anybody react to that.
Well, I mean, it hasn't been voted on and approved, so I think there's a desirable plan out there now. I think that was an important step, and then also, I mean, there's a fair amount of execution involved to achieve that plan. So I think it's expected that companies have a way to compensate their CEO. Now, this is a very special compensation package. There's no question about it. It's unique, but I mean, it's expected that your CEOs get paid. I think Tesla is just in this technical trading range. It's being, manipulated. We know where the next levels are, and I think it's set up well. I think a lot of the bad news. I mean, literally, the CEO got on the last call and said that the next couple of quarters are going to could be rough. So I think a lot of the news of what, is out there, I think there's risk in everything that they're executing on going forward because they're such audacious, undertakings. They didn't take the easy way out. For example, on autonomy. Autonomy is a very difficult problem, and they approached it in one of the most difficult manners possible, and it will end up being the most scalable and most cost effective. So I just don't think it's one of those things, but I think it could happen. It could easily technically break down here too if there's some form of like really bad news that comes out. So it's I would say at a really interesting level to watch at this point. But I think more of the bad news and more of the poor catalysts are in the rear view mirror than it's been maybe in the last year or two. If you think about it, and I talked about this on one of the pods, because of Tesla's low inventory and low network latency, they see these, they saw this auto slowdown before anybody. And I think others are now stepping into it. We're seeing several automakers pull their build plans down. We're seeing trouble in China, which we've talked about for the last year. A lot of that was predictable, and so we're just at a strange spot right now. I think Tesla's actually entered in, and if there is an exit anytime soon, with some of these high dollar, high interest rate items, Tesla's going to come out of that faster than others. So I think the short answer is I think it's Friday. Back to your original point, Herbert. It was just came out Friday. I think the market's doing its thing. Let it do its thing. But I think my bottom line is more of the negative catalysts are in the rearview mirror than I think I've seen before. That doesn't mean something bad can't happen tomorrow with a robo-taxi ride or what have you. I think Tesla's also being very careful about their approach on that as well. So I think there's a good setup. They have to execute though, and these innovations have to produce revenue and gross margins to the bottom line. So we're at the really early stages.
One of the conditions that was in the new compensation package was a condition that Elon's involvement in political sphere wind down in a timely manner. It's vague. It's not enforceable. It was just more like, he's given us assurances he was going to do that. How did you guys take that statement?
I think that was in there to appease some of the institutional voting members on the compensation plan. And I think this is just me talking out loud. I think the board's like, hey, we're gonna put these words in here, but we have no way to enforce this.
Yeah.
And but we're gonna put these in because we're basically, we need votes on your plan to get it through, and it'd be helpful if you kind of behaved and didn't, alienate 99% of Congress and the federal or the executive branch, over the next couple of weeks. That would be helpful too, to your own, to your own plan. So yeah, you'd hope that there's some sort of convergence. I mean, again, if you're a Tesla shareholder, you want some amount of convergence. You want some amount of focus. It doesn't mean that Elon isn't special and he can't do a number of things concurrently. I'm in the camp that you don't tell him what to do. I'm in the camp that he's special. I'm in the camp that you don't treat him like any other CEO. At the same time, we can also have like a fair amount of like common sense in these things too. And anyway, I think I've said enough.
Okay. Any final comments? Anybody on the panel here want to talk about that before we move on?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, excuse me, Omar, go ahead.
no, you can go first.
I just want to say, maybe some other people out there are quicker readers than I am, but this proxy really deserves to be read. And it's not an easy read because it's also the 15th proxy, right there. And it builds up on a lot of old stuff where you have to go back to the older proxies. I mean, some of the stuff I had to look up 2014, 2018. So if you do this slowly, you need more time even than this week because voting starts next Monday. So all those that were, reaching out to me say, yeah, I want a summary and all that, please give me the time because I want to do this right. But it will take another couple of days until I'm through with it.
Yeah, I'd like somebody to do a definition for every one of the milestones. Like I asked CERN, right? Is that 10 million FSD subscriptions? I'm sorry. Yeah, I can't remember the question I asked him. Yeah. No, I can't remember. No, is a robotaxi, the 1 million robotaxis, is that cannot be company owned, or does that all have to be,
Exactly. And it's so much in the detail, and then they have appendices where you have to, go through. If you comb through it and you try to find an answer to any of the questions, I mean, more you read, more you have questions and less you have answers. It will in the end become, a full picture. But just this is one of the situations where I don't trust Grok, right? And I'm working with Grok on it all, but and I wouldn't even use any of the others. But it's really more complex than it looks like.
Yeah.
But by posting those like FSD benchmarks that Elon needs to reach, and robotaxis, does that imply that they would post those in their earnings?
They can announce them at any moment. I mean, the financial goals have to be maintained for always 6 months. So, it's not as if we don't know when we are in the test period during those 6 months. And then it has to be associated of one of the operational goals and could be any, right? It's not in the order they've listed them. And so, then it could be a tweet from the Tesla account saying we've reached, I mean, the same way they announce now that they're at 8 million cars. All it needs is that announcement. So for your option traders, because that's where you're coming from, Xander, I guess, this is going to be impossible to manage. Impossible.
Shouldn't they, if that is the milestones for Elon to hit, shouldn't they tell us what exactly it is today for each of those milestones?
Well, what is today? Is it September 15th? Is it 10 days or 8 days ago when he came out? Is it November 6th? That's the first
I think they should let us know before we start voting, because if you're going to vote, you need to know, okay, is he going to be able to hit 10 million FSC subscriptions? Well, what is it today?
I mean, I think that the subscription rate, we know it's in the low double
Yeah, I
digits.
know. But those, you know what I mean? Like, don't they have the responsibility to actually tell us exact numbers?
I'm not sure whether it's a responsibility. I mean, they're saying, again, I'm not through it all. They're saying we're at 8 million cars. The goal is 20 million cars. So that calculation you can make. I think it's very fair to assume that all the others were close to zero. I mean, the bots, of course,
Yeah.
and the whole growth has to be made, because that's the worst case scenario, right? That you have to make all of it, that there is no base that gives you already cover.
Okay. And then Omar, we interrupted you. Sorry, I've forgotten what you're going to reply to.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of investors have been upset about Elon's political tweets and the impact on the business. I think trying to stop Elon Musk from tweeting whatever is on his mind is probably an impossible task. But it doesn't really matter if this provision has any teeth, because you have the compensation plan itself, right? He gets $1 trillion if he can hit these milestones. Those are related to profit, market cap. To the extent that his political involvement has any impact on the business, he may not be able to meet those goals. So he's going to be thinking about this. He's going to be thinking about meeting those milestones. And I think the incentives will work in the favor of Tesla shareholders. He has discretion, obviously, in what he does or doesn't do, but he wants to build a city on Mars. He wants this kind of capital. I mean, I honestly want to see what the downstream effects are of him investing $1 trillion into whatever. And really, to make that happen, he is going to have to make sure that the company's executing. So I think it'll kind of resolve itself. That's really the most powerful thing that shareholders can get is, hey, if you want these options and you want to be able to exercise them and you want them to be able to be worth something, he's going to be thinking a lot more about the impact on Tesla, I think, compared to a situation where he wasn't even sure if he was getting the 2018 options.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I made a post the day after that. It's like, I feel great. I woke up and I had a big smile on my face. This performance award is so amazing. It actually laid out the path for the company, for Elon. He's focused, or he needs to be focused if he wants to get paid. His very first tranche, he has to double the company to $2 trillion and hit one of those milestones. It's hard for me to figure out which of those milestones can he hit in the next year or 2 years or whatever. It's like, what the friggin'? Oh, Omar, do you have an idea?
Yeah,
going to double the company?
I was going to mention a couple things. You guys said for the million robotaxi milestone, the proxy did lay out that it can be either Tesla-owned vehicles or customer-owned vehicles that contribute to that million total. So that was an interesting little breakdown there. The fact that they're talking about FSD subs, I think a lot of people have said, well, are they going to stop selling cars? I think probably as long as that milestone is there, they're going to be selling cars. They're going to be selling subscriptions to people. But in terms of where we are today, they haven't spelled it out in detail, but I think obviously there's only 8 million Teslas. So there's no way they could possibly have, 10 million FSD subscriptions. FSD subscription isn't available in most markets. Even, some markets that have FSD, like Australia and New Zealand, still don't have subscription. So I would put the number of subscriptions well under 1 million, probably somewhere in the range of maybe a few 100,000 at most at this point. But yeah, I agree. It would be great if they kind of spelled that out for us in more detail. But right now it's nascent, right? It's below 1 million. So I think when they talk about 10 million, obviously they have to actually deliver a lot of vehicles to even have 10 million that can subscribe to FSD. And then they actually need to drive the attach rate much higher. It's sort of interesting to think about the incentives this creates if maybe we're going to see some pricing changes on FSD or maybe some discounts on subscription to drive the attach rates high enough that they can hit these tranches.
Mhm. I think at the end of the day, he will need to partner and license it to get there faster. Otherwise, you're restricted to how many cars you can make, even if it is a robotaxi, a cybercab that is much faster to make. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.